Hello, this is Derek from Trade Technicals, and today is the 15th of July 2009, and the stock market had massive gains today, and it looks like possibly that we might have an economic recovery, at least according to those who are spreading the internet from messages from the Associated Press, Reuters, anything you see on CNN, CNBC. The news is saying a recovery is actually going to happen. Now the big thing is when you receive news, whether it be that from CNN, CNBC, whether you see it from the news articles that you read, people on YouTube, even stuff that you just think in your head, how do you know it's true or not? And I'm going to go through some techniques in this video as far as reading truth from fiction from other people here, and I'm going to start off with some news. All the links are going to be in the more info, but this one doesn't have a link because this is hearsay evidence, but the hearsay evidence should have a very good track record because this guy is pretty much, he's called 3 things in his life. They've all been amazing. The only thing that he pretty much failed on was he said in 2004 that the top was going to be like early 2006. So he was off by a year and a half there. Okay, so maybe his timing might be off here, but what he's saying is Donald Trump and the McMahon family, the WWE, and he also named a couple names I can't remember, and a bunch of other millionaires and billionaires are actually planning on selling stock, and this is going to be associated with some sort of event that he doesn't know anything about. Now the thing is that this should bring a big stock fall. Now Donald Trump isn't really all that rich in comparison to like the Warren Buffetts or the Bill Gates or the Walmart family and so on, but nonetheless they apparently do have money invested, and they were asking Donald Trump, like, what was the purpose of it? And it seems as if this is the good news, that he sees the economic situation not looking too good. And what this means is he's actually going to donate a high percentage of it, not through government charities, but it's actually going to be buying food and survival items for, and he thinks he can get many different families in America. And when asked why he decided to do this, he said that he was visited by 3 Christmas ghosts. Yes, I'm bluffing you, and that was bullshit. Do you really think that everything you hear on the news is true? No, not everything you hear. Now, if you found out any tells, like I was bluffing, congratulations. Obviously, I would hope you got it before the 3 Christmas ghosts idea. But nonetheless, not everything you hear is true. So, obviously, poker players use this on an everyday level when they're at the table so that they can tell if someone is lying or telling the truth. If someone is lying, or they can tell someone is lying, then they know they are able to bluff them out of pots, or they are able to call with average hands. If they see that they are telling the truth, that they got something really good because of their research on how to read people, then they're not going to really play too many pots with this person, and they're going to need a really good hand to make the call. That's why reading people is so big. So a big thing is, especially with articles, because you can't hear what they say, and there's been grammar and spelling checks by many people, is to see, well, what's the reason they would be trying to say this? What kind of motives do they got? Why would they say it at this time frame? Is it better to say it back a couple months ago? Would it make more sense if they would say it in, say, August or September? I mean, I was just watching In the Money Stocks, and he was saying that the mainstream media was actually talking about that head and shoulders pattern like 1 week after people like myself and other technicals were seeing. In fact, I was even talking about a week or two before, but nonetheless, a week after it broke, they started talking about, and we're seeing the stock market go through significantly big rallies. So that's one thing to keep for too. But when you are actually listening to the people talk, try to focus on their tone of how they're trying to say things. And there's so many different tells. I'm not going to talk about too many, but I'm going to talk about 2 obvious tells, and they're both tells of lies. And there'll be links on the more info for both of them. And they both got to do with politicians, because I want to focus this on media. So this one happened to do with George W. Bush for September 11th when he was confronted about it. During this 911 interview with George Bush, he could not handle people talking about, did you have advanced prior knowledge to this? And all he was saying is, it's time for politics, it's time for politics. He could not handle the question. But the big thing that I listened to was when he said, absurd insinuation, or it's absurd, or something like that. You can just tell by looking at his face. You put everything together, it's so obvious by the way he looks that he's lying. Another one is the second link, and this was President candidate Kerry, and this was talking about Bohemian Grove and its group, which he was supposedly a member of it. Now, the tell on this video is that when someone is very uncomfortable with the situation, they will try to change the subject and focus on how Mr. Kerry goes out of his way to try to change the subject when he's uncomfortable with the situation. Those are just different tells you try to get. And when you see the tells, what does it mean type thing? That's a few questions you ask yourself. Okay, the first link, factories are beginning to recover while inflation remains tame. U.S. industrial output declined at a slower pace in June, and a key regional U.S. survey posted its strongest reading in a year this month, suggesting that the recession was loosening its grip. Now, I'm not going to say too much about these these articles, but what I'm going to say is, when we talk about reading, what do I try to read from here? It says that they declined at a slower pace in June. When you decline at a slower pace, it's still a decline. And improvement is when you actually have improvements. When we see unemployment, we gained 300,000 jobs. Or once we can gain 500,000 jobs from our bottom, maybe we can start to see signs of improvement. And that's what they're saying. So now I even say stuff to myself, well, why is it declining at a slower pace? Well, it's almost like if you're in a lot of pain, and a severe amount of pain, and you take some morphine. Well, your pain has slowed down. That's what the bailout money has done. It has declined the economy at a slower pace. So that's the type of things I do when I try to read these articles. Next article, Conference Board says slump all but over, but growth to rebound 2.7% in 2010. This comes from the Canadian Press. So it's saying that Canada's painful recession appears close to an end after the economy received two key votes confidence Monday, suggesting a turnaround, albeit modest. It's just around the corner. Okay, so now the question I say is there is just no evidence for a recovery. I mean, I want to hear the evidence for it, and a part of me wants to hear it, but it's just not there. And so now, obviously, when I look at tells, they're obviously just making a story. That's all they're doing. And by saying they appear close to an end, this is a type of spot where if I want to see them say this on a lie detector test. Although a lot of politicians are born to beat them, though. Okay, so the stock market was up pretty big today, and the reason why it was big was because of DELL earnings. DELL had huge earnings, so I guess that's the reason why stocks were to go up like almost 3% or over 3%. And so I guess that's the reason why, if you think DELL making more money should bring the stock market up 3%. Wow, I mean, like I've said this on the blog, if the stock market goes higher and we start to test Dow 10,000 and maybe even higher, that's going to cause a lot of inflation, and there's no fundamental way of doing this other than printing money or just having a lot of the money buy stocks. That means banks and the rich people are all going to be buying stocks. And quite frankly, no matter how high the stock market goes up to, it's going to crash some later date in the relative future. Like, we're talking the next many months anyway. I mean, most likely I've been thinking, yes, we'll probably test Dow 5,000, but If we don't, it's inflation. And if we do test 3 or 4 or 2,000, that just means inflation will not be quite as bad. That should be the case. Or we might even have a little bit of deflation before another inflation. Who knows? But the only way we have massive deflation is if we have Dow 4 or 5,000. Moving on. Consumer prices jumped 0.7% in the month of June. So the inflation was 0.7%. And if you times that by 12 months, that would be 8.5% on CPI numbers. Of course, it's just a higher number for the month. Regardless of the fact, it is still really big. Now, there's one thing that this article said that just blew my mind when I read it. I'm trying to find it. Okay, it had been to do with the price of gas. The upward surge was driven by a 7.4% rise in energy prices, reflecting a 17.3% increase in gasoline prices. The biggest one-month jump in gas prices since a 21% spurt in 2005, and after Katrina had shut off the refineries. Analysts are looking for gasoline and other costs to retreat in coming months. Gasoline pumps prices are down by about a dime since the start of July. I don't think that the gas prices are coinciding with the prices that the market has on it. Okay, now the Fed spoke today, and this one is a big one. Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke said that the economy is actually going to improve, but the jobless rate should top at 10%. Now, the thing is, when someone tells you information like this, you ask the question, why? Why is it going to top at 10%? And I have not seen an answer that makes sense to the reason why. And they'll say, oh, the stimulus money is working. No, the stimulus money is loosening. It's making the free fall slower. We're having a decline at a much lower pace, just like the pain comes at a much lower pace. But the thing is, the governments say that the stimulus package is designed to work over the long run, where it seems, well, morphine isn't designed to work over the long run, it's designed to work over the short run, meaning that when the medicine wears off, the pain comes back. And you need more. And a lot of times you need to take higher dosages and they work for less time. That's pretty much how most of those narcotic drugs work. So is money a narcotic drug? Maybe. No, moving on though, he predicts that the economy will shrink between 1 and 1.5% this year, which is an improvement from its old forecast issued in May. Anyway, let's move on to a few more things. Apparently, banks are making money. I mean, we've seen news of Wells Fargo, JP Morgan. I mean, they're all making money. So you ask the question, well, how are they making money? I thought they were doing really bad and losing money. Balance sheet wise, yes, they are, because they have so much of an accounts receivable that they're not getting back. So it's like a bad debt expense. That's what's really cost them. But they've written those bad debt expenses off to previous years. That's what I learned as an accountant when you have accounts receivable. When people don't pay the accounts receivable and you just know you're not going to get the money, what you do is you do a bad debt expense. So say someone owed you $1,000 and you know they're not going to pay it back, they would put in $1,000. If someone goes bankrupt, then obviously you get what you can out of them, the rest is bad debt. So in a case like this, banks had, with the mortgage crisis, they had so many foreclosed houses, and say for example this one person owed $250,000 principal, but the bank was only able to get $100,000. That means they wrote off an expense of $150,000 for bad debts. But the way they're making money is through commissions. Banks get people pretty bad. Have you not seen that yourself, how much you're paying banks? And I'm not just talking about for bank account fees. And it's both, well, first the interest that they're charging, and now they're being very strict with the people they give money to. Very strict. So when they get more strict like this, they reduce their bad debts. The equity market makes them a ton of money. Stocks, I mean, $20, $30, $10 a trade. It adds up. And really, if you see something $20 a trade, try 40. 20 for the buy, 20 for the sell. So banks are officially making a lot of money. Now, would this be a good thing or a bad thing when there's many people unemployed that banks are making a lot of money? I mean, they're taking our money, so what they're doing is causing the problem to deepen because less people can spend. Because, for example, on stock trading, if you're a stock trader, if you're the average stock trader, you shouldn't break. Normally you break even on trades type trader. On the long run, that is, you're going to be losing because you're paying those $20 fees. Now, if you're a pretty good trader, you're probably going to break even on those trades. That's if you make a lot of trades, of course. And if you're a day trader, no matter how good you are, when they're making 10, 20 trades a day sometimes, at like $5, $7 a shot, those add up. And they do that like 20 days a month. So banks are actually making a lot of money. Don't be fooled by thinking that they actually don't. They got a lot of money in their vaults, and what I've noticed is it makes common sense that the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. Now, obviously, you're trying to trust mainstream news again, but Forbes, the 2009 rankings of top rich people are still a little lower than the 2005 ones. So that would say, well, the rich aren't getting richer then. Yet, to a point, if the numbers were true, it would. But if you look at the list of people, you see nobody associated with higher league government because they're not reporting. Any of the mobsters, they're not reporting. And there's just a lot of the secret organizations aren't reporting. And I don't know how the banks work out because it's individual people. And if there's many people making money on the banks, I mean, you need to be like at least $10 billion to be considered to be on that list. So, banks are actually making money. Enough about that. Bernie Madoff has been sentenced to jail for 150 years. Okay, so he's a little over 70. They think he can make it over 200 in life. Nonetheless, I'm not really talking about that. I'm basically, and I'm not saying that what he did was a good thing, but what I'm saying is how could it be the worst scheme ever? I mean, I agree that based on the legal system, what he did is wrong and that he should be punished based on the way that our Constitution works. However, they never pointed out what the biggest, largest scheme was. I mean, he was a few billion, like what, 33, I mean, a few billion, 30 billion, $50, I don't know, I can't remember, but the number is low compared to the Federal Reserve. They're talking trillions of dollars. And it all started when you said, you know what, let's go off that gold standard. That's when the largest Ponzi scheme actually has begun. It has been going on now for at least 40 years. And, well, you know what, it's just the biggest fraud case that they have convicted. I mean, Ron Paul has wanted to audit the Federal Reserve. Now, they didn't do that. Now, did they? No. And now, did they audit the government for 911? No. Yet, if it's not the government, they will make the audit or go through its court case. Okay, one other quick thing. The United States dollar today closed pretty low, as we've seen. It hit a bottom range, which is very big. If it breaks that, we could see some more sliding in the dollar. And basically what this is going to affect is everything associated with dollars, that is bank accounts, that is stock holdings. Everything associated with dollars is going to be affected big time. How it's going to be affected, well, use logic for that, I guess. So anyway, this has been a long video. I'll probably make this 2 parts, and have yourself a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.